Well, hello and welcome to the launch of the Smart Centres Index number 10. To our viewers in the UK and Europe, good morning. To our viewers in Kazakhstan and Central Asia generally, good afternoon. To our viewers in East Asia and Australasia, good evening. And to our viewers in the Americas, shouldn't you still be asleep? That joke works for those of you who are with us live. It doesn't work quite so well for what I think is probably going to be the majority of you who are watching this broadcast on catch up. But you two are very welcome, and we're delighted that you're joining us and want to hear what we have to say about the Smart Centres Index number 10. Mike, next slide, please. I'm Ian Harris. I'm a founder director of Zien Group. And have been involved with everything that Zien has done. I can now say for over 30 years, because Zien had its 30th birthday a couple of months ago. Next slide, please. The agenda is quite a straightforward one. My welcome introduction I'm doing now. It might not take the full 5 minutes. And then we are delighted to welcome today Talgat Amanbayev from Astana. He's the Chief Innovation Officer at Astana International Financial Center, and he's going to give us a short presentation giving the view from Astana on our topic. After that, Mike Wardle, who's our Chief Executive Officer at Zien, will give you most of the results from the Smart Centres Index number 10. Obviously, the full pack is available in the report, and the report is available on our website now. I will spend just a few moments giving some commentary and observations after Mike has spoken, and then we are hoping to leave time for questions, comments, and answers from you. Just in case any of you have not joined us in this go-to environment before and are here live wanting to ask us questions, we love taking questions from you live. In order to do so, please use the question button on your go-to console. It is the only way that we will see your questions during the live broadcast. If it's not the live broadcast or you don't want your question asked live, by all means email in questions later and we will try to respond to them. But for the live broadcast, we are locked into this go-to webinar sort of universe, and we don't see anything that's outside it until the broadcast ends. So please send in your questions through GoToWebinar. Just before I hand over to Talgat, I'd just like to introduce both of our speakers. I'm very conscious of the fact that people join us, they normally do look at the page through which you join. So I don't need to read the CVs out to you. Talgat is an interesting character who graduated from Indiana University. And prior to his current role, he chaired the board of the National Kazakh Tourism Board, which is a rather interesting career. And it is my way at the moment to try to give an interesting fact about people that isn't on the CV and that possibly even their best friends don't know. And Talgat's interesting fact for today is that before he got married, he moved 29 times. Which I think might even compete with our own chairman, Michael Mainelli, for the number of different places that he lived at a fairly early stage of his life. So I think that's a very interesting fact. Mike Wardle, our CEO, somebody that I've known for many, many years. He was the chief executive of the General Social Care Council and a very senior civil servant in many other ways. In the past, he's been with Zien for many years now. And worked with me on many projects, some of those listed. But the interesting fact about Mike, this is the thing that maybe even some of his friends don't know, today's interesting fact, is at the age of 9, he sang solo in Southwark Cathedral, which I think is a very impressive, interesting fact. Enough of me. Let's move over to hear what Talgat has to say, the view from Astana, please. Talgat, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ian. Good day, everyone. And I'm about to share my presentation. I hope you can see my screen. So, good day. It's a privilege to join you today to celebrate the launch of the 10th Smart Center Index report. Astana's recognition as the 52nd Smart financial center globally and second in Eastern Europe and Central Asia, is a testament to the transformative efforts of the AIFC as well. This achievement highlights our commitment to leveraging technology, fostering innovation, and creating an environment where global standards meet local opportunities. Today, I'd like to share briefly with you how regulation, incentives, and bold initiatives are reshaping Astana as a regional hub for innovation and smart development. So I work at the AFC, and the stream that I manage is innovation. And innovation, at the heart of the transformation of innovation, is Innovation Hub. And it is based on three core pillars, which is government and international relations, fostering collaboration with public institutions and global partners, venture capital development and startup support, enabling entrepreneurs to access funding and expertise, developing of an innovative ecosystem bridging technological solutions with business growth. These pillars support our overarching goal to establish Kazakhstan as a global leader in innovation, financial technology, and entrepreneurship. So some of the projects I'd like to share, one of them is called reputation scoring. A key example of our innovation is the reputation scoring system. It's an AI-powered solution that generates comprehensive risk assessments by analyzing diverse data sources, including governmental databases, social media, financial records. This system enables businesses to make informed decisions, minimizing risk and enhancing trust within the ecosystem. So one of the different approaches that we are using is everybody's familiar with risk scoring. It's when you make your decision or give a risk score based on some data. Well, what if a company was just created a few months ago or even a few days ago? There will be almost zero to no data. So this is where we use an AI-driven risk scoring. The way it works is it tries to simulate the prognosis, like a risk score, based on who is in the company and the industry where the company is operating. So it'll go into the board that is managing the company. It'll try to look at its board's background, try to see how they're active in the social media and LinkedIn, for example, try to see their background, try to make an educated guess on how the behavior will be shaping the potential risk score for the company. And then, of course, it will also analyze the social media, which is becoming quite a big thing. I was in Belgium earlier this year on a big conference held for regulators. 60 different countries sent their regulators to network and to collaborate. So a lot of the countries in Europe and in Northern United States, Northern Americas, they are creating a similar systems like this, where the real data is combined with synthetic data or generated data using the powers of AI. The other flagship product that we're working on is called Tabys. Tabys in Kazakh means earning or income. So Tabys is an app that is essentially was created as a financial platform to democratize investment opportunities, so that every household, every individual could invest with as little as $1 at the age of 16 and above to access different types of ETNs, tradable notes, and then to invest. But what we also noticed is that we need to work on financial literacy of the community that we're working in. A lot of the people in Kazakhstan and in general Tabys geography, which is CIS countries, right now we have around 18,000 daily users, active investors who have invested with at least $100. So what we notice is there is a lack of financial literacy. So a lot of people know the basics of investment but are afraid to invest because they don't know how. So this is why we created this new feature in Tabys called Tabys Education, which is essentially keeps the functionality of the exchange, but also has learning management system module that will allow to sell additional courses. There is a gamification like in Coursera or Duolingo, where you have a path, say an investor or a crypto investor, or you want to become a creative industry investor, and things like that. One of the other projects that we're working on is Venture Studios. What we call Venture Studios is a special framework. It's a special legal framework for startups, and not only IT startups, but any startups. What we found is it is easy to create a company, but it is very hard to close it if the company doesn't meet its purpose, or the product market fit fails, or the MVP doesn't become a success, which is a common story when you're an investor, right? You're investing in 10 different ideas, and only a few of them actually make it to the market and make success. But the rest, they have to be shut down. So this process was, first of all, it was biasing the data on amount of companies that were working. Second, it was on the legal side and financial side quite a burden. Sometimes it will take almost to a year to close a project. So we decided to create a special environment, fail-safe environment, where a company, an investment company or a VC, can create a venture studio where they can invest in multiple projects. They'll be sharing the staff. They'll be sharing, for example, accounting staff or legal staff until they actually make some profits. And once they make the profit, they would graduate to becoming an actual company. So this venture studio regime is a globally rare initiative. It's, I think, strengthened Astana's position as a destination for corporate innovation. Our partnership with global accelerators, including Antler and Quest Ventures, further enhances this ecosystem. And I think these efforts, complemented by a robust legislative framework, enables the predictability and transparency for investors and entrepreneurs alike. And one more thing I'd like to share is on legal side, a lot of things have been going on recently with creative industry in general. For example, in Kazakhstan, movie making industry is now becoming a big thing. People who are investing in movie making are making really good exits. And by that, I mean it's better than investing in real estate. Some movies, they make a 10-fold or 15-fold times the investment, which is a good opportunity for people to generate money. But there were two challenges that we needed to face. One was related to crowdfunding, and the other one was related to intellectual property protection. So this is why we at AFC, as a regulator, decided to create a framework which is called IP Protection Act, which enables to create an IP, tokenize it, and use this tokenized IP, for example, as a tradable token. You can put it on an exchange. You can sell it. You can use it as an equity in a new company, so it'll have a value. Then you can send it over, sell it over, or things like that. So it'll become an actual property that you can own and operate. And there are different types of intellectual property: commercial, the copyrights, all different types of that. And we have a special court, the AFC court, which is an international court operated under English common law. So this court is protecting this IP and enforcing it, making it a safe environment to be creative, but also be sure that whatever you create can be protected, can be monetized, can be sold, can be tokenized. So this whole idea of using IP tokens is not new, but it's new for Kazakhstan, and I think we're the first in the region to do this. The other thing that I'd like to talk about, the venture capital development startup support. We have brought some big names to the area, like Trulim Venture Studio, which have just registered with the new framework that we created, and then the local White Hill Capital. And not only them, we are partnering with many different VC capital development startup companies who are pushing this new idea of making an Astana a friendly environment to test creative stuff, to become creative, be it in fashion, in movie industry, be it in game development, be it in software development, be it in financial, fintech or medtech or edtech. So I think our role as an AFC is quite crucial to make Astana a successful environment for that, providing the court, the legislation, the protection, the enforcement, the infrastructure, the legal structure. So in closing, I'd like to say that Astana's journey is a story of ambition, collaboration, and innovation. By aligning technological advancement with a supportive regulatory environment, which is AFC providing, right? We're creating a financial and technological hub that inspires progress in our region and I think beyond. I look forward to sharing more ideas, answering some questions, exploring opportunities for collaboration, and thank you for having me today as a speaker.
Helga, thank you very much. That was fascinating and a really helpful introduction ahead of the Smart Centres Index 10 results. So let me now hand over to Mike. I think his slides are now up on the screen, and let Mike share those results with us. Mike.
Thank you very much, Ian, and thank you, Talga, for that introduction to developments in Astana. We've been looking at cities at ZN for almost 20 years as places where development takes place and business thrives. And we're now in the 10th edition of the Smart Centres Index, the Global Financial Centres Index. We published our 36th edition recently. So we've been looking at cities for many years. The Smart Centres Index itself, I'm sorry, is designed to track commercial centres' ability to create, develop, and deploy technology. And it really is an attempt by us to look at where people are developing an infrastructure that allows technologies and innovation to thrive. The index is what we call a factor assessment index. That means it combines two different sets of data. First of all, perception data taken from a survey that we run continuously, which asks people to rate centres as places for innovation and technology. And then a large set of quantitative data, which we combine using advanced statistical modelling. And the overall result then is a single rating for each centre. In effect, what we're doing is using the survey results to weight the quantitative data that we use in the index. The SCI uses three equally weighted dimensions: innovation support, which is the approach taken to regulation and the support for innovation and technology provided; creative intensity, the extent to which technology and innovative industries are embedded in the economy; and delivery capability, the quality of the work being undertaken. There are 77 centres that we are tracking now in the Smart Centres Index, and there's clusters of those obviously in Asia, in the Middle East, in Western Europe, in North America, but we are slowly improving and increasing the number of centres that we're able to track in the index. In terms of who gets involved in the survey that we run, this gives some overall data. You'll see that in terms of people responding from different parts of the world, we have pretty good coverage, with the largest number coming from Asia Pacific, the second largest number, interestingly, coming from the Middle East and Africa. And by sector, we have a wide range of sector, with people in technology and professional services, the largest groups amongst the respondents. So the headlines. London retained first place in the index. New York overtook Zurich to regain second place. And there's 5 Western European centres in the top 10, alongside 3 US centres with Singapore and Tel Aviv. So not a lot of change at the top, just some small movements. There were 4 centres rose 10 or more places in the ranking in the index, while 2 centres fell 10 or more places. Again, quite a lot of a low level, I guess, of variability. The average rating for the SCI fell just over 1%, following a fall of 1.3% in SCI 9. And it just shows that there may be some hesitation in confidence in technology centres across the world, probably driven by geopolitical threats and a continued slow economic growth across the world. So just to recap the top 20 centres, I've mentioned the top 10 already, but you'll see also that places like Dubai, Busan, Toronto, Hong Kong, Berlin, Jersey, Shenzhen, Stockholm, all in the top 20 and performing very well. Amongst the top 20, you'll see that Jersey has risen 9 places in this edition of the index, a really good performance in quite a small centre. Looking at the leading centres in the index over time, the big lesson here is, I guess, there's a narrowing of the results. There is a view that the leading centres are getting closer in their rating, although, as I've mentioned, ratings have been dropping over the last couple of editions of the index. And just by dimension, we can see that actually for most centres, there's a really good balance between the 3 dimensions of innovation, support, creative intensity, and delivery capability. And in earlier editions of the Smart Centres Index, we did see a bit more variation, with particularly Asia-Pacific centres being less strong on innovation support, but that seems to be balancing out now. Looking at the different regions of the world, first of all, looking at Western Europe, I've mentioned London already, taking top place in the region and the world, but Zurich, Cambridge, Geneva and Oxford are also in the top 10, and 15 of the 26 centres in the region either retained or improved their ranking in the index, which is a good performance for Western Europe. In North America, we have 9 centres now featuring in the index. You'll notice that Toronto has risen 5 places, Vancouver up 3, so Canadian centres performing very well. And it's important that to note, however, that all the North American centres fell in the ratings in the index. As I mentioned, ratings are down overall. In Asia Pacific, Singapore leads the region, but Busan, Hong Kong and Shenzhen also rank in the top 20. 13 centres in the region maintained their position or rose in the rankings, but only Osaka improved in the SCI ratings. In Eastern Europe and Central Asia, we've heard already from Talgat, Astana taking second place in the region after Cyprus. And generally, centres here have been falling back a bit in the rankings. We see that there are some exceptions to this, with Cyprus moving up 4, Istanbul moving up 5. In the Middle East and Africa, we have again 9 centres featuring in that region. Tel Aviv, Dubai in the top 20, Abu Dhabi not far behind at 23rd in the index. And again, while most centres have fell in the ratings, Riyadh and Bahrain both improved in the ratings and in the rankings. Mauritius, although it fell 1 place in the ratings, also rose 8 places in the rankings. So on the whole, Middle East and African centres performing pretty well. In Latin America and the Caribbean, we track 4 different centres. Bermuda rose 2 places to move into first position in the region. Mexico City performed very well in this edition of the index, up 13 ranked places and 4 rating points, and is taken second place in the region in this edition of the index. Just a brief word on the areas of competitiveness, the groups into which we place the quantitative data, which deal with technology, financial services, reputational aspects, business environment, human capital, and infrastructure. And we are able to run the index model separately for each of those groups of quantitative data, and they do give some slightly different results. London and New York actually do retain first and second positions. Singapore, however, takes third position across all those areas, with Zurich taking fourth position in most of them. But we do see some centres with particular strengths. Busan, for example, takes 10th position in the infrastructure measure, which is a good performance for Busan. Shenzhen takes 10th place in the reputation and general measures. So we see that different centres have different strengths in the data, and that's a useful indicator for centres that want to continue to develop their performance. I should just give a very honorary mention to Dubai, which took 7th place in the human capital measure, a really good performance there. And we can look at the effect of the technology factors by comparing the index results using all of the quantitative factors compared with the index scoring using just the technology factors. And you'll see that there are some centres that perform particularly well when you just take the technology measures into effect. Hong Kong, for example, is 10 places higher on that measure than it is on the overall index, which suggests that for them and for places like Stockholm, which is up 12 places compared with the overall index, they are really very strong on the technology measures that we use in developing the SCI. And again, if you are a really specialist technology firm, that's a useful measure as to where you might want to look to base your business. One of the things we look at in our indices is what we call reputational advantage. This compares the scores that centres receive in the SCI survey with the overall rating that they receive once we've run the index model. This is the top 15 scoring centres on this measure. What it shows really is that the reputation of these centres is very strong. They are marketing themselves well, and they have a very good reputation for the technology and innovation that's taking place in their centres. Whereas we'd probably say that the quantitative data would have scored them slightly lower. So it could be that their marketing is running ahead of the reality in those centres, and they may need to just pay attention to that. At the other end of the scale, we have a number of centres who have quite a high negative reputational advantage. This means that we believe that they, in reality, looking at the data, are probably doing better than their reputation amongst those people who know them. That includes, for example, Astana, where we think probably the reality is better than the reputation that Astana has amongst our survey audience. And again, for these centres, the message is really there's an opportunity for them to market themselves more successfully and to say a bit more to the world about how well they're doing. I'm going to finish there for my overview and hand back to Ian.
Mike, thank you very much. That was terrific. I have just a few observations, just really building on what Mike has said before we open up to questions. Mike, next slide, please. In the past, when we've done these launches, I've pulled out a couple of centres and talked about the regional difference in that reputational advantage and reputational disadvantage. And it seemed interesting this time to look at Tel Aviv and Dubai, both of which are centres quite close to each other geographically, and both doing well in the index, to see their regional differences. And their regional differences are different from each other. So if you look at Tel Aviv, for example, there is a strong positive advantage from people who are scoring them from Asia Pacific and from Middle East and Africa, whereas there is a fairly strong negative from the ratings from Western Europe and from Eastern Europe and from Central Asia for Tel Aviv. Contrast that with Dubai, also slightly negative on Western Europe, but whereas Tel Aviv is very positive from Asia Pacific, Dubai is negative from Asia Pacific. Tel Aviv very slightly negative from North America, Dubai slightly positive from North America. Tel Aviv quite strongly negative from Eastern Europe and Central Asia, Dubai positive from Eastern Europe and Central Asia. So I think that this is quite different between those two centres. I put a bit of a discount on the big bars for Latin America and multi-regional for Dubai, as they're very small samples. But certainly for those areas where we have quite a lot of data, there is a statistically significant difference between the types of ratings they're getting from those different parts of the world. Next slide, please. I always like to look at the correlation between Smart Centres Index and the instrumental factors generally to see what might be having an influence on the results from those factors. And as I have said in the past on these things, the R-squared for many of these factors are really quite closely grouped. So there is a positive correlation between the Smart Centres Index and the Global Financial Centres Index, but it is 0.615. So a correlation of 1 is very strong. A correlation of 0.5 is really not, and correlation of 0.6 is not that strong either. And you can look at this list. You don't need me to read them all out to you. Reasonable correlation between SCI 10 and other indices, less so perhaps for things like government effectiveness and instrumental factors such as talent rankings and the like. Next slide, please. And then correlation with technology factors. Again, this isn't a very strong reading, but on Fintech, the Fintech indices used for GFCI, you're above 0.5, and on one or two other areas, perhaps surprisingly, a smart cities index where the R-squared is only 0.265, and global crypto rankings of 0.255, and telecommunications infrastructure only 0.3. I think that's slightly surprising that those factors don't correlate more strongly, but perhaps that's indicative of what's on people's minds when they think about smart centres. Next slide, please. So what is on people's minds when they think about smart centres? Well, we asked people what technological developments are like to have the most impact on industry over the next 5 years, and this slide shows you people's opinions on that. I have mentioned before my slight scepticism about what people might have in their minds when they group into some of these categories. I'm not sure the extent to which people would distinguish between artificial intelligence, digital and computing as a category, and electronics, photonics and quantum. Those categories could be grouped together. Robotics could be grouped in with computing. It could also be grouped in with advanced materials and manufacturing. So I wouldn't read too much into these groupings, other than the fact that there's a fairly strong leaning towards health and medical and biotechnology, which to some extent I've grouped together. That's nearly 20% of people say they think that is going to be the main thing. 5% of people say space, about 20%, 19% think energy and environmental, and then the rest are the more robotics, advanced materials and manufacturing, electronics, photonics and quantum. And the biggest score is for AI, digital and computing, and I can see some of the questions that are coming already have an AI focus. So that's a little unsurprising. Next slide, please. This is one of my favorite topics, which is about patent applications per million people. This is one of the factors that we measure. And this shows change over time. And I think it's absolutely fascinating to see the United States, Germany, the United Kingdom, Switzerland, all pretty much stable in terms of the number of patent applications per million people, slight increase over the last four decades. But compare that with China, for example, which wasn't really in the hunt for this factor until very recently. Now with more patent applications, significantly more patent applications per million people than the United States. And of course, China has got an awful lot more people. That's a lot of patent applications coming in from China. And then again, using this as the proportionality of this in Japan, always has been very strong in terms of patent applications, reputationally, as well as in fact, still significantly higher than anything that comes out of the USA and Europe. And topping the charts and going off into the stratosphere of patent applications, South Korea just continues to put in more and more patent applications per million people every time we look at this factor. I just find that very interesting, and I can see with so many of the questions oriented towards this technological side of things that is likely to have an influence on smart cities into the future. Next slide, please, Mike. Lovely. So it is time for comments, questions and answers. I'm hoping that Mike and Talgat will join me. Wonderful. And we've had several questions already. The first one that I'd like to ask is from Bob McDowell, is a friend of Zien, and because he's a great friend, I'd like to just slightly alter his question, because his question says, is AI having an impact on the quality of smart centres, and in what ways? Yes, I'd like to place the emphasis in what ways, because clearly AI is having an impact on smart centres. So I'd love to hear from both of you your thoughts on the ways that AI is currently having an impact on smart centres. And perhaps we can start with you, Talgat, because you really are at the sharp end of this. I know AI is your special focus at Astana?
Okay, thank you, Ian. Yeah, definitely. Like you said, AI revolution has already happened, and the biggest impact that I see in our work is on human capital. I see that a lot of the time there was a big challenge in differences between the expertise and the experience of our colleagues, of our team members. But with AI coming in place, even the youngest and the freshest or the greenest team members who just joined our team can become a sophisticated, seasoned professional because it empowers them to be more a bigger expert. And I have surveyed the team that I work with, how is AI affecting their work, and it also showed that result that they're feeling more empowered. They feel they have more support and more knowledge to do more stuff quicker and better. So I think overall AI is impacting the development, particularly of AIFC and our projects by empowering our team to do more. That's on the one side, and then the other side that I mentioned in my presentation is the data accuracy and the gaps. When you try to work with big chunks of data, there is a big work related to data normalization. So when you have from different periods of time, some data, but not all of it, but then you want to try to make a period of say 20 years or 25 years, it helps to generate and fill to make an accurate prognosis. So those two cases, I think that come right in the top of my head.
Thank you. Mike, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I think just talking as I do to people across the world about developments in centres. The message coming through on AI is that certainly is helping in various ways. It's helping in terms of making some business processes more efficient. It's certainly helping in the analysis of data. And I think if you're looking at scientific and technological applications of AI, the ability of AI to sort through images to look at data in different ways is the thing that's making a real difference. That if you are a serious researcher, then you can do more with the data than you've ever been able to do before. The one word of caution is that for some aspects of business, particularly regulated businesses, AI is useful to an extent, but if you can't explain how the AI is getting to the results it's getting successfully to a regulator, then you're on a sticky wicket. And so there are some business processes we're finding, particularly in regulated industries, where AI is proving less helpful because it is less easy to meet your regulatory requirements. So there's an awful lot going on, but there are some limitations, I guess, to the use of AI.
Mike, thanks very much. Shane Drinian has sent in a very interesting question. Again, it's oriented towards you, Talgat. Specifically, Mike might have some comments on this as well. He's latching on to your mention of synthetic data in relation to the reputation scoring app, and he'd like to know just a little bit more what is the role of synthetic data in corporate decision making, and do you see this changing as the technology behind AI matures? Really good question.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's a big debate whether to rely or not rely to synthetic data. So by definition, it is a data that was generated using some algorithm or other data, usually combined with a technology like AI. So let me just briefly see what I have been observing while going to different conferences. I see that a lot of the big brands, say McDonald's or Adidas or Nike, the sports making companies, they are already relying on synthetic data to do product market fit analysis. So instead of serving thousands and thousands of households, they are relying on AI driven software, which would say, all right, I need 300,000 responses from females somewhere in Latin America who do this or that for their job, or have this many kids, or have this much income, and it'll generate. And then based on those responses, they would make a marketing decision to their product. So the businesses are already implementing the synthetic data for their job. So as part of a quasi-governmental structure, AFC is 100% government. Like Mike has mentioned, some of the AI-related stuff is not reliable for regulators, but we're relying on a specific type of AI, which is called causable AI. So that is different from generative AI in terms that it has predictable causal factor, like you can predict the outcome based on the input. So this kind of AI is actually something that we can trust or rely, because trust is a big issue when it comes to AI, right? You have to be able to everyone should understand how the computer brain that is simulating, how it makes decisions. So based on causal AI, the synthetic data, we rely on it for our studies and for our marketing and for our future research. I hope this answers the question, Ian.
Good answer, Mike. Do you want to add anything to that?
I don't think I do. No, thank you.
No, the only thing that I would add to that, of course, is to emphasize the point that Talgat's making about the causal data, because in a sense, underlying the SCI index and GFCI is the use of synthetic data of that kind. And it's been tested very, very heavily, and it's very, very reliable around the problem domain of interpreting what people are saying in survey data on the back of the instrumental factors that we also use. There's a couple of questions here from Samantha. I will ask them both at the same time. She thanks you for a really interesting presentation. Thanks for your kind words, Samantha. Again, oriented towards you, Talgat. Firstly, she'd like to know if there are any quick wins for small businesses through your risk scoring data. You know, for example, access to capital. And the second question, which is a slightly different topic, but also interesting, seeing the appetite for learning regarding digital and gamification apps. How do you see that progressing with these technologies? If I can give both of those questions with you.
Okay. So the first part of the question is to the risk scoring. The reason why we build it is so that the new companies who have zero history can build trust quickly and can gain access to obtainable capital and investment. So, for example, if you have a very good team with very good management board with very good product, using our risk scoring app, you will get a higher score, which will allow you to get a cheaper loan or a faster investment, instead of waiting time to build your reputation, to get the equity, to get the product out, to get these. So it's actually time saving. So we see that the best benefit is for SMEs, which is small medium enterprise, because bigger companies, they are already public, they already have these annual reports on the websites, so it's easy to actually invest in them. They're predictable. But for newer companies, reputation scoring apps, they will be, I think, game changing in the sense that they can build trust based on the team that they have gathered. Because essentially, when an investor comes in and invests, he's investing in a talent. So I think that helps to build proof. And the second question is on learning based. I think COVID, although it was a terrible tragedy all over the world, but it brought two things. First of all, people went digital very quick. Even my parents, they're almost in their late 60s, almost next to 70. They become active users of Zoom, of WhatsApp, of QR payments. They became digital. So this has sparked a whole spree of online education. So we see an increase globally in investment in global edtech solutions, and in Kazakhstan as well. So we saw that it is now becoming a mainstream trend that people are investing in their further professional development, not their master's or PhD degree. That's different, right? Traditional. I'm saying that for professional development, we see the big demand for courses, for changing careers, especially with AI coming in. A lot of the careers is a big debate as well. What will stay, what will go. So we just want to be a part of that story to bring something in, but also try to fit in the agenda of literacy, and not only financial literacy. There is also internet literacy. There is also, with all this scamming happening digitally, people have to be careful with how they share their data, how they act in the media, so they don't become the target of scams like that. So all kinds of different new literacies, that new skills that people need to be trained. There is a big call for that, and I think answering this call with projects like Tabus is a good strategy.
So that's terrific. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. There are one or two more, but there isn't enough time. Mike, can we just move on to the next slide, please? Thanks so much to both of you for answering those questions. Just a very quick shout out to everybody. When we launched Smart Centres Index 10, you know what that means. We're already planning Smart Centres Index 11, and we would like to encourage all of you, please, to take the survey and to help us to keep the Smart Centres Index going. That's due for launch in May next year, and please do chime in with your surveys. The Global Financial Centres Index 37, that's also still open for March conclusion, and the Global Green Financial Centres Index for April. Next slide, please. For those of you who love our webinars and events and can't keep away from us, there's quite a bit going on in the next couple of weeks. If you are in London tomorrow, Wednesday, 27th of November, and would like to join a face-to-face mixer event towards a global financial hub, our friends from Busan will be joining us for a late afternoon, early evening event. If you're interested in that, please go to the website and click through. Charlotte will tell you whether there are places left and provide you with joining instructions if you would like to come. In the webinar program, the next webinar is on Thursday, the 5th of December. It's a topic that absolutely fascinates me with my interest in tea drinking and charitable or social enterprise. This is the London Tea Exchange and the Global Fair Pay Charter. Sheikh Alio Rahman should be an absolutely fascinating webinar. And for those of you who are fans of Michael Mainelli, I think it also marks his return to the webinar chairing seat. And the week after that, another fascinating webinar, Thursday the 12th of December, Fixing the Crises in Capitalism and Democracy. We've allocated 45 minutes for fixing those crises, and Mike's going to be chairing it, and he's hoping actually to solve those problems in less than 45, maybe even in 30 minutes. He's nodding sagely. Joining him will be Martin Wolf, Colin Mayer, and Shan Turnbull, which is a really interesting and leading lineup. I've heard them all before. They are sometimes controversial and always interesting folks, so that should be a very interesting one as well. Then only now to say a really big thank you to you, the audience, for being so attentive and chipping in with such interesting questions. Really appreciate that. And also in particular to our guest, Talgat. I thought your presentation and your answers to the questions were just absolutely spot on. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mike. Thank you as well. And goodbye, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ian, for having us.